All right, joining me via Zoom. As I mentioned a minute ago, college football championship game slated to be played on Monday, assuming nothing crazy happens at Ohio State. But the guy I've brought on many, many, many times to talk about Alabama, talk about the SEC, a good friend of mine, you can hear him 2 to 6 Central Time, tied 100.9 in Tuscaloosa. He is my Bama insider. Ryan Fowler, my man, what's going on, man?
Man, I'm looking at you, and normally we just talk on the airwaves. So, I mean, man, you got this 5 p.m. shade kind of shadow there. Are you doing a little something there, Torres?
Well,
I mean, you look good, man.
Well, first of all, it is amazing. We've probably done hundreds of phone calls at this time. First time
Sure.
And not trying to get political to lead the show here, but I live in California. I'm not really allowed to leave the house. So, why would I shave? I mean, the fact that
Okay.
TBA.
So is that a week? Is that a week right there? Is that hours?
See, I'm a little bit of that Trevor Lawrence. It doesn't take me 6 months to grow the mustache, but for people that, and I am going to post this video on YouTube. Ryan's got the James Harden beard going on. I got like Trevor Lawrence like 6 weeks from now at the combine kind of buzz going. And what's going on, man? It's good to see you face to face. How you doing?
Yeah, man, I'm doing great, man. We got Heisman trophies, we've got awards coming up, we've got national titles. I mean, I think I talked with you earlier this week, and we talked about the number of things that was on the table. I mean, it's like an all-you-can-eat buffet in Tuscaloosa. I mean, it's great, man. It's great to. I mean, I enjoy sports. I don't know if are we allowed as media? Are we allowed as media to enjoy sports? I mean, are we okay with that? I mean, is it? I love it, man. I mean, I've got the greatest job in the country. I love it. Alabama, Tuscaloosa.
Well, no, first of all, we are allowed to love sports. I got the Tennessee-Arkansas basketball game on in the background. We both love what we do. We're a dying breed that works in sports, that actually enjoys sports. But, I will say, you got a little extra pep in your step because, for people who don't go on radio with you every week, and as I said, 2 to 6 in Central Time, tied 100.9, Alabama, you got to win every game. And you start 2 years ago with Trevor Lawrence tearing apart Alabama in the championship game. Last year, Ed Orgeron in the locker room. We're going to beat their butt in recruiting. We're going to beat their butt here. We're going to beat their butt everywhere. You got an extra little pep in your step, my man. It feels like, 18 months of frustration over 2 losses, by the way. We're not talking about Tennessee that goes 3-7 in an SEC-only slate. We're talking about 2 losses over the last 2 years, but you feel like you got an extra pep in your step, man.
All right, so a couple of different things, okay? I've been a funeral director for like 2 years. I mean, you got to remember, Santa Clara was a whipping, man. I mean, it was a beatdown. So I had to host the postseason after that, right, for the entire. And then we don't get there last year, so it's been a 2-year. But then, it's also 2014 Sugar Bowl game against the Buckeyes. We're calling this Revenge Tour 2020, man. We're after everybody. The Buckeyes, Ezekiel Elliott, I know you're not playing out there, but I'm sure Sean Deion Hamilton, who's playing for the Washington Redskins, remembers what you did in 2014, and payback's coming, man. Somebody's got to pay the price.
Well, I was going to say that is the vibe that I've gotten out of Tuscaloosa this year, and I haven't been down there. I'm not around the team every day like you, but for people who don't know, I mean, listen, I think it goes without saying, Alabama, it's championship or bust every single year, and last year was the first and to date only time that they didn't even make the playoff. And it does feel like, dating back to the Missouri game, September 26th, it feels like there has been a singular focus and anger and in this crazy season that we've had where guys are in, guys are out, Nick Saban's coaching, he's not coaching, maybe he'll be back. It just feels like out of every team in college football, this team has had a focus and focus, I think, is the best word to it that I haven't seen from anybody else this year. It's really kind of incredible from a distance.
Well, I mean, take it into like this. Okay, I'm giving you a Tuscaloosa perspective here from a sports talk radio. We take a lot of phone calls. We kind of, our claim to fame is we're the voice of the fan, the average fan who calls in and participates. But let's just take like Devontae Smith, who picked up the Heisman earlier this week. When you look at Devontae Smith, he said last year when he decided to come back that they had unfinished business. And see, this is the challenge that is placed upon these players when they arrive. The upperclassmen place it on the younger guys. Don't you dare let the dynasty stop. You better not be responsible for allowing the dynasty to start. And Derrick Henry explained to me what those other guys had kind of placed on him responsibility-wise. And it's just kind of gave me an understanding that they don't like being the class that allowed it to drop. And so Devontae Smith comes back, Najee Harris comes back. I mean, we're talking about guys who delayed $1 million paydays to come back and win a national title. Yes, there is something personal that these guys take, and I think they've kind of taken it upon themselves to reestablish this Alabama level of the standard of winning national championships in Tuscaloosa.
Do you have an appreciation in college sports right now? And I love what we do. Like we said, I'm so grateful. But, we're talking about, transfer portal this. We're talking about, I saw the number one high school player in America, Corey Foreman, in football. He committed to USC, and he talked about how USC is going to help him build his brand and all that stuff. Do you appreciate the fact that Tuscaloosa may be the last place in college sports where it's about the school, the name on the front of the jersey, the name on the helmet, more so than the back of the jersey? Because, man, that's what we all grew up on. And it's funny, me doing all the basketball stuff that I do, every spring somebody inevitably says, well, this guy, maybe he'll be an NBA draft pick, but, he could come back and win a national championship this year. And it's like, most guys don't care about that stuff anymore, at least not relative to what it was 8, 10, 12, 15 years ago. Do you at least appreciate that is still the energy and the vibe that's coming out of Tuscaloosa? Because it's few and far between right now, man.
I never really thought about that as you were talking about that. I mean, maybe you're kind of giving me a perspective that you see from an Alabama perspective. I do feel like that is fair. I mean, I haven't really spent a lot of time thinking about it, but I mean, let's take it for just a minute. We look at the name, image, and likeness. I think the state of California, there's many other states that are going to be incorporating that in the upcoming year. Florida is set to do it this year, right? I mean, we're in 2021 now. So, yeah. They're set to do it this year, the name, image, and likeness. So, you may have a player that wants to wear a mouth guard sponsored by, whomever, or, he may want to have something that, he benefits from an endorsement standpoint at certain schools. Are we going to lose some of that? Are we going to lose some of that authenticity of college sports that it's going to become? I mean, the other part of it is the transfer portal, right? We've got that rule now that you don't have to wait out. You have this like freebie out there that you could transfer to a school and you could be eligible immediately. That's going to be incorporated. So you tie all that together. Maybe Nick Saban still preaches the team concept. And I think that's one of the reasons why that maybe they have success. I've told you on a private call, I mean, not that I'm revealing anything, world-class secrets here, but I told you that when you asked Devontae Smith or Mac Jones about the Heisman Trophy, that it was almost like you were almost embarrassed them by asking them to talk about their personal individual achievements. But it's what Nick Saban has done to make these guys to believe in us and we and as our team, not as I and me, that he finds a way to process these guys. We call it Sabanized. They've been Sabanized. And that's, that's not just recent. That's been for 14 years that Nick Saban has had this program going in that direction.
Take it for granted, man. Don't take it for granted. I mean, because the world is changing around us. And I think, Alabama and Alabama football is one of the last places where it still is about the team. It still is about the program. All right, let's get into the game. You said you had to host a funeral for essentially 9 straight months following the Clemson loss in the title game. That was Trevor Lawrence's freshman year. He emerges on the scene. I guess it got better for a minute last year. You go 9-0,
Sure.
you lose to LSU and then Auburn to end the season. What is the mind frame, energy in Tuscaloosa right now? Is it we have to finish? Well, obviously you have to finish it, but is it this is the end of our destiny? Is it we're worried about Ohio State? Where are we at with everything?
Well, listen, I think when you look at Ohio State, I mean, you got to look at their football team. I think they got a quality team. They've got some, I got to be the first to admit, I mean, I know that we're kind of doing things that are against our media code of ethics book, but, I didn't value Ohio State going into that semifinal game. Maybe not as much as I should. After watching them play, I think I have increased my awareness about that team. Justin Fields, pretty incredible. Backs, wide receivers. I mean, they're a balanced football team. That they kind of remind me a little bit of some of the Nick Saban teams of just kind of having a guess of what they're going to do. Mobile quarterback, Justin Fields, the health side of things. Listen, I did a score prediction contest on my show earlier this week, and guys, it was a lot of scores. I mean, there was a lot of big scores, but there was also a lot of very close scores as well. And I'm talking about like 3-7 points. I probably had, 10 or 15 of those that were, not outside that
Alabama Ohio State game, right? Not Ohio State.
Yeah.
Clemson. Cool.
Yeah. But I mean, just to go back, I mean, where I had Ohio State valued this time last week and where I have them now is significantly, and I think that's what I was trying to say is maybe just echo that from Alabama fans. I think they have respect for, Ohio State. And I think this will be I think Alabama's going to win the game. I'm not going to back away from that. But I think Ohio State's going to present some challenges for Alabama, especially that defense that has struggled, this year.
So real quick, we'll get back to the game in a second. I do have kind of an interesting question for you. You come on my national radio show with Arnie Spanier. And, one thing we kind of joke about, I think you were on the night of the Cotton Bowl, maybe when Dan Mullen had all those bizarre comments about our season ended 11 days ago and this doesn't even count and all that stuff. And I look at the SEC right now, right? Alabama's quote unquote biggest rivals, Auburn just fired their coach. Tennessee, not in the best place right now, to put it delicately. LSU, who really knows where this thing is going to go? What programs in college football, because you're an Alabama fan, you're not a fan, but you're a radio media personality. What programs do you look at? And maybe it is only Clemson and Ohio State. And you say, I respect the way that they do things. Maybe they can't beat Bama, but I think they're well coached. I think that, they're accountable. I think they play hard every week. Are there any other programs outside those two? Is it only those two? Do you have a different opinion on Clemson, maybe after Dabo's kind of antics the last couple of weeks? Because, that's kind of the curiosity thing to me is, like you said, it feels like the Alabama fan base has a newfound respect for Ohio State. And I'm curious, is it just the Buckeyes? Is it anybody else?
Well, I think it's just temporary. You look at Ohio State, you just kind of get respect for what they were able to do. But then when you back up and you take a look at Clemson has had respect, but I mean, look at them. I mean, they've had to deal with losing championships and kind of getting beat. And so I think when you take a look at programs, you could take a look and you could say, well, Georgia excels in recruiting, but then Kirby Smart mismanages the team. And so, you have this like checklist and you start checking things off and you're like, okay, well, this team does this well. This team does this well. But when you look at all the different boxes, like Nick Saban develops talent. He puts guys in the NFL. He develops them from 5 stars to first rounders in the NFL. You look at winning championships. I don't know, and this is setting up for probably an ego comment here. I don't know if there's anybody right now that is on the level of where Alabama checks all of these boxes, where they're doing it, NFL, recruiting, graduating players. They're not in the top 2 or 3, but they're in the top 10 in graduation rate. I mean, they get players. And even Devontae Smith 1 year ago when he said, I'm coming back, that was one of his goals. He said, I want to come back and get my degree because I know football is not going to be forever. And I want to do something, post football. So I think he puts, like Mac Jones, straight A student, He's walking out of here with 2 degrees.
Wow.
So, you back up and you look at that. I think Nick Saban checks a lot of boxes. I think there's some programs that have the potential. You look at Texas A&M. They've got money. They've got facilities. They've got resources. Now they've got a $75 million coach. I think we've started seeing them take some steps in the right direction. I don't think they're there yet, but I think in the SEC West, they could be a major player. You look at Dan Mullen. I think he's a really good football coach. He's arrogant.
He's a Northeasterner like me. He's a Northeasterner.
Oh, is that?
He's from New Hampshire. I'm from Connecticut. It's kind of the same thing. I walk around here with a little, chip on my shoulder, and I think he does too. So.
Well, but I mean, you smile. I don't know if Dan Mullen ever smiles. I mean,
it's true.
So you look at a lot of these programs, and I think that you see so many coaches that get fired because they have these expectations, but I think they're almost unreasonable because they see what Alabama is doing and they want to be like Alabama, and that gets people in trouble. I always say it. It's like the individual that wants to live in the rich side of town, but he can't afford it. So he goes out and gets the interest-only loan and lives with the Jones and the Smith, but he really needs to be, where you and I live, right? I mean, we need to be out the middle folks out there. But there's a lot of programs that mortgage their program to try to live up with the Alabama, the Clemson, the Ohio State. But I think I think you're right. I think Ohio State would check some of those boxes. I think Clemson would check it. Georgia would. I don't think Kirby Smart is a dynamic coach. I think he's probably about a B level coach. I look at the talent. I think he mismanages it. You look at JT Daniels. I think he made some mistakes there. We're playing against a quarterback that Justin Fields. I think you can really put some responsibility on Kirby Smart. I think he mismanaged that. Now, it doesn't seem like he takes any criticism for very few people, but I think it's fair to throw those at his feet and say, hey, you mismanaged that quarterback room. So.
Well, and you were probably in the building when the only time that Justin Fields got on the field was a fake punt against Alabama in whatever it was, 2018 SEC title game or whatever. So, yeah, I was just curious because, you guys are on top of the mountain, and I think there's a lot of there are guys that I think are reasonably good or getting there or are dynamic or are interesting. But I will say, man, you're right. From top to bottom, when you look at these programs, and I think personally it's a problem for college football is how good Alabama, Clemson, and Ohio State are at this particular moment in time. But that's another conversation for another day. But, there's probably in any given year, I think realistically, probably 11 or 12 teams in the SEC that know they have absolutely no shot. Some of them try to talk themselves in otherwise, but I don't know, man. It was just kind of something I was curious about. Back to the game real quick. I mean, obviously, look, Justin Fields, super dynamic. When I look at this game, and I'll talk more about it on Monday's show for people who are listening, but, I think the one thing that stands out to me, Ohio State's secondary was not very good this year. The one thing they do have going for them, they dominated the line of scrimmage. They were able to get pressure on Trevor Lawrence. What is, in your opinions, I hate to do the cliche radio guy thing, but keys to the game, things that matter, things that are going to be an X factor one way or another. Obviously, you're looking at it from the Alabama perspective, but, you can flip it and, if Alabama doesn't do this, we can't win. But what are those factors in your opinion?
Well, they've got to take away their number one option in the receiving side of things. They got to be able to shut that down. But they also have to be able to control the mobile quarterback in Justin Fields, because that has been a kind of a kryptonite for Nick Saban.
Yep.
So you could back up and you look at Justin Fields. I think that's the part that you kind of add in there of what he's going to be able to do mobility-wise. Christian Harris was a little sore. Remember, when you play a lot of games, Ohio State, I know you're not really up on that, but Arkansas-Alabama game, the first play of the game defensively, Christian Harris, the all-star linebacker, goes down with a shoulder injury, and he's still recovering. So I think when you think about that, you think, okay, he needs to be able to spy Justin Fields and to be able to keep him contained. The offensive line needs to play like they won the Joe Moore Award like they did early this week. Chris Owens stepping in for Landon Dickerson. I think you got to watch that. He had a great game. And I say great, I mean, probably a B-plus type game. He made some mistakes, but I think he'll be those nervous jitters will be out of there, and he'll be able to step in and really play an anchor side of role. But Mac Jones needs to play like he's played all season. Devontae Smith needs to come out and play. Najee Harris. Sark needs to have a great game. And you look at, the distraction with Texas. Is that a distraction? Will it be a distraction? Those things are, if they check all the boxes, if Alabama plays their game and they, Najee Harris picks up production, Devontae Smith picks up yardage in the air and stretching that field, Mac Jones is on. I think Alabama wins the 18th national title in school history.
Real quick, any update on Jalen Waddle? I think anybody listening to this would know this, but, All-American, top 10 draft pick type wide receiver. He got hurt against Tennessee. He's been out 6-7 weeks. There are people saying that he will be potentially, that he's been practicing back for this game. Do you have any thoughts or update or opinion on that?
Yeah, I think when I look at Jalen Waddle, I've heard some buzz that he's back out on the practice field. He was dressed in pads. He did some things. If you're Ohio State, you're going to have to spend some time preparing for him. If it's Nick Saban just using some gamesmanship here to maybe make the Buckeyes prepare, I think they're going to have to take a look at Jalen Waddle and try to find a way, how are they going to defend? The secondary is a weakness for Ohio State. Their front is a strength. But when you take a look at John Mechie, you take a look at Billingsley out of the backfield, from that tight end row, Najee Harris out of the backfield, Devontae Smith, Miller Forstall. There's a lot of weapons that you're going to have to account for. And if you add Jalen Waddle into that conversation, I don't know if they can handle what we know right now. If you add Jalen Waddle Alabama may be in the 50s. Now, the other thing is, I don't know if they can slow down the Buckeyes. There's a defensive concern. So take the over, man. Take the over in this game.
Well, that's what, as I start to look at what this game could look like, that's my first inclination as well. So I'm guessing with Justin Fields, he's incredible. I'm guessing there's some worries defensively about and I think you brought up a good point, a point that, I know when Arnie Spanier and I on Fox Sports Radio were talking about it, we talked a lot about mobile quarterbacks, Johnny Manziel, Cam Newton, Deshaun Watson. These are the guys that have given Nick Saban trouble. So I'm guessing that's probably your biggest concern is Justin Fields' ability to make plays.
Sure. Extend plays. And, you extend plays. Will Josh Jobe and Patrick Surtain be able to take that number one option away? Will they be able to take the other options away? You think they will be able to. And then you have to ask yourself, are we going to get a Justin Fields performance like he threw up against Clemson? How much of that was the motivation, Clemson disrespecting the Buckeyes? Can you get them up 2 weeks in a row to play inspired football? Because Nick Saban has not given them any bulletin board material. I think Nick Saban voted him 5th in his coaches poll. Dabo voted him 11. So I don't know if they can play that inspired football, but you never know. Coaches have a way of manipulating different things. Maybe they use Kristen Saban's tweet earlier this week with COVID-19. I don't know what, I'm trying to find something, but I don't think it's going to be the Dabo disrespect. And I think that was part of the game that they played. Their focus, their level of focus was laser-like. And I don't know if they'll have that in this game. I think Alabama, like I said, Alabama wins this game. But I think it's a third, fourth quarter game.
Yeah, no, I agree. And it's funny because I did talk with Arnie about this a little bit, is the idea of could you not be as motivated for a national championship game? But I think there's a real possibility that from Ohio State's perspective, that's the case. People forget, but they lose to Clemson last year in the playoff. Clemson, they actually outgained Clemson. They were up 16-0. And their whole season was basically built around getting back to the playoff and beating Clemson. Not saying they won't be motivated, but it's something to think about. 2 quick questions. I'll let you go. First one. So you mentioned Steve Sarkisian. He's out the door. One, were you as surprised with everything? Because I like to think that I have a reasonable finger on the pulse of what's going on. I'm not trying to break every story. I don't break stories. It's not really what I do, but I try to kind of know what's going on behind the scenes, what could be happening. I was blindsided by not necessarily the firing as much as having Steve Sarkisian lined up as a hire. And then two, for the love of God, Adam Gase is not really going to be the next offensive coordinator at Alabama, right? Please, I don't even care. I'm not even an NFL fan, but I got enough friends in New York, being from Connecticut, that just got rid of the guy, and I just can't imagine that dude coaching college football. I'm sorry, I can't.
Well, I mean, you look at there's a lot of options for the coordinator.
I would think so, yes.
If you're handing the keys to a sports car, you can go out and get a lot of guys. So I think there's a lot of guys that will be calling Nick Saban, hey, I want that job. I want that job. So you just trust Nick Saban. It's kind of like recruiting. You don't worry about 4 and 5 stars because he's going to bring them in. So I think the offensive coordinator, regardless of who it is, if it's Bill O'Brien, if it's whoever, I mean, if it's Tom Herman, I mean, I'm just throwing out names at this point, but if you bring in a quality guy that's looks like a rehab program to get a guy back in a head coaching spot, then Nick Saban has done that pretty well. But let me go to my code of ethics book here. Just one, because you've got me to break all these media code of ethics real quick.
Okay,
let me
let's
look real quick. You want me to admit that I didn't see this Texas thing coming? I mean,
Yeah.
I've admitted. Absolutely. I did not see it coming. I had no clue. I'm not supposed to say that. I had no clue. It was a shock to me. They kept it quiet. And maybe that does tell you that Nick Saban is the most powerful person in college football if he can keep Texas's mouth shut for a few days, right?
Very true. Very true. No, it was stunning to me, man. And credit to Sark, man. I was out here when he was at USC. I told you privately, but you hear stuff, you don't know totally what's true, but the guy definitely had, demons like we all do. And so to see him come full circle and end up back at Texas, I'm excited for him. We'll talk about it when I'm on your show, but I actually think USC trained him well for Texas. I don't think people realize just how crazy and delusional USC's fan base is. Maybe it's not quite Texas, Alabama, Georgia, whatever, but it's pretty close. Last question. If Alabama does win, I mean, what does this mean, right? Like because for some, like LSU wins the title last year, Ed Orgeron, he's a Cajun, he comes back, he delivers the title, he topples Nick Saban in Alabama. Urban Meyer comes back, wins a title. We know what it would mean to Ohio State if the Big Ten, if they were to win in a season where we didn't even know if they were going to play. Bama's going on, what would this be? 6 titles with Saban, 5 titles. I lost track, basically, is what I'm trying to say. But it does feel like there was the revenge tour factor. There is kind of the evolution of him as a coach where now they're putting up 50 points rather than trying to win every game 13-7. What would it mean, not only to the fan base, but to him? I mean, his legacy is clearly set in stone as the greatest of all time, or the greatest of our generation anyway. But what would it mean for Alabama to take home this title?
I mean, it would be as you said, that you check a lot of those boxes with a revenge tour. But also keep in mind that Nick Saban, with this win, would go past Coach Paul Bear Bryant with national titles. So you kind of calculate that. I mean, I know that'll be a part of the offseason topic because there's still a lot of the old guard that thinks that Coach Bryant is the greatest coach of all time. And when I look at Nick Saban, I think he's the greatest coach of all time. So that will be a debate. You kind of maybe reestablish Alabama's level of dominance because they've slipped for a couple of years with not winning a national title. So you try to reestablish that. But I also think that we begin to have a conversation from a historical perspective of where would this team rank all time when we look at this Alabama football team. And I think, we talk about the award season. We talk about the All-Americans. I mean, think about the All-Americans from 134 last year. They're up to 141 now. 141 first-team All-Americans. So you go from 134 to 141. So you back up and you begin to add that all together. You got to kind of say, hey, look at this team. Is this a historic season? Don't want to put the cart before the horse, but I think you have that conversation. Is this one of the greatest teams of all time? And I think Devontae Smith has walked out of here ahead of Julio Jones, Amari Cooper, Ozzie Newsome as the greatest wide receiver to ever wear a crimson jersey. But I think you walk out looking at this season, historical significance, not just Saban past Bryant, but maybe this is one of the greatest college teams of all time if they get the job done in Miami Gardens.
Yeah, it was really funny on this show. I mean, it was probably about 3-4 weeks ago, maybe with a game or two left. I said, I think this is the most dominant to that point in the season Saban team ever, because back in the day, it was you had the defense, but not the great offense. And this year you had the incredible offense, but for a couple of years there, the defense hadn't really caught up. And this year, to a large degree, they have. Now, I know you have some frustrations following them day to day, but it's been incredible. And I'm excited to watch. And so Ryan Fowler, you can hear him 2 to 6 Central Time, tied 100.9 the game. I just put away my notes, so that was kind of dumb right before I outro you. But Ryan C. Fowler on Twitter. Anything else? I mean, I think I know what wall-to-wall coverage is for the next couple weeks on your show and what you're doing.
Well, I just want to say that I'm the best-looking radio guy in the entire country, and
Sure.
I know that, after watching
you that, but
yeah, well, I mean, after watching, I thought you were in the close running, but just being able to see your face, you're behind the pack.
I do need a haircut, but that's another conversation for another day.
Are you allowed to get haircuts? I mean, are you allowed to get haircuts? I mean, you got pocket knives. I mean, could the wife get the scissors out and do some things? I mean, not that I have this problem. I mean, I'm needing a haircut too, and we can go to the barbershop here.
Barbershops are closed. I did get an illegal haircut at my house. I posted it on Instagram. I wanted the world to know. I tagged our governor because I'm not very happy with a lot of things here, but trying to keep it out of politics and focus on sports. But yeah, no, I cannot go to the barbershop right now.
Sure.
I got football.
You're all right. I mean, you're second place, man. I mean, you're okay. I mean, you're behind. So you're okay. You're okay in my book. It's good to see you, Torres. It's a lot of fun to talk football with you.
Ryan, it's always a pleasure. Dude, we're going to have you on to talk some Bama basketball. Best team in the SEC, baby.
Woo!
Oh, my goodness.
Nate Oates, man. How do you like that?
Nate Oates.
Beat Florida and Tennessee in back-to-back weeks. Final Four in Tuscaloosa, man. Final Four.
Big friend of the Aaron Torres podcast, Nate Oates. I don't know if you can name 3 players on the team. It's okay though. We still love what you do. You're going to cover Alabama.
Oh, come on. You don't think I can really you don't think I can?
I know you know John Petty because he's been there about 11 years, but Ryan
Herb
Fowler,
Jones.
Herb Jones, there you go. All the guys, yeah.
Quinterly was out against Florida, but okay.
He was.
Okay.
He was. Javon Quinterly.
Okay.
I don't know if you know that, but Ryan Fowler.
Yeah, I was struggling with the first name, but I got the last name right.
Tide 100.9. Follow him on Twitter, Ryan C. Fowler. Ryan, thank you, man. I appreciate it.
Hey, we love you guys, man. Roll Tide from Tuscaloosa. You guys have an awesome evening, man.